origins of the media that's enabling you to watch and listen to me now share certain common roots with this device. I don't have to tell you that this is what's commonly known as a cordless phone. Cordless, of course, to differentiate from the predecessor, which had a cord. I'm going to run through a bit of the history of the phone as it relates to my lifetime, and a few comments on the phone as it's used today. The phone in its various forms goes back approximately 150 years. Different engineers working on different aspects of the technology. Although the general patent is recognized as belonging to Alexander Graham Bell, there were many other engineers who tinkered with the idea, contributed to it, and of course many other people have contributed to the various improvements that have happened since Bell's time. Back in the day, it was a great way for businesses to connect, relay information, orders, and as people spread out across the country, to stay in instant communication with each other. But it was never really seen as an absolutely essential object or item for the majority of people, perhaps because life was slower. We could write letters. On the occasional emergency, there was the telegram. But during my lifetime, I would say, thinking back to the 60s, no more than 20% of households would have had a telephone. If you needed to make a call, for instance to call the doctor, you could go to the call box, conveniently located at street corners, so no one was further away than perhaps a couple of 100 yards. That was of course in the day also when doctors made house calls, but that was about the only emergency that ever came up. As economic conditions improved in post-war Britain, of course you saw the introduction of more and more devices into the home. But for many, even though they could afford a phone, it wasn't seen as so essential. Your friends lived within walking distance, or you worked with them, so you could invite them to social functions. People would send out letters of invitation and wait patiently for the reply. As time went on, it was deemed to be more and more essential. So more and more people had phones in their houses, often limited still to one per household. And more importantly, there always seemed to be someone at home to take a message for you. My first encounter with an answering machine was probably somewhere around about 1970. And from then on, the game almost of telephone tag developed. If you weren't smart enough to leave the correct message, someone then called you back, leave a message on your machine, you would then call them back, and eventually you'd get the matter sorted out. But my whole point with all these, whether from the privacy of your own home or the call box, which really was a call box, usually surrounded with glass windows and a door on three sides and one solid wall, the telephone conversation would be conducted within almost absolute privacy. You could say what you wanted to the recipient at the other end, and no one else in the immediate vicinity would know about it. Of course, time went on, people wanted to be in touch more and more. Businesses were the first with the introduction of the car phone. Because of its size, pretty much only a car could transport it around. But then, roughly roughly in the 80s, we saw the introduction of the first cell phones or mobiles. They were about as big as a brick, but at least you could carry it around with you. Following the improvements in technology, of course, they got smaller. One interesting story I heard related to the design of the phone. In order to market them better, it was realized that on Star Trek they used phones that flipped open, or communicators, I think they call them. They flipped open. So the early cell phones adopted this style as a marketing tool, and that's when we really saw the start of people talking to each other all over the place all the time. One thing that doesn't seem to have changed though when people are on the phone, it seems that everyone thinks that the conversation is private. If you've ever been stuck in a checkout line, you'll find all sorts of what used to be totally private conversations going on, and I honestly have to wonder, and usually it's ladies, I can't just say it's ladies who are doing it, but the most blatant use, I think, is ladies on the phone to their gynecologist or their best friend giving a account of what happened between them and their significant other the evening before. The other annoying factor is when you're stuck behind someone who isn't paying attention to what they're purchasing. The cashier has to cancel the sale, start all over again. And again I ask, can't these conversations be put on hold? These people could either politely step out of line, wait for the next person to take over, and rejoin the line when the conversation is over, or just politely say to the person on the other end, excuse me, I'm in public now, I'm at the cash register, I'll call you back in a few minutes. Or perhaps etiquette has totally changed. Once upon a time as well, on public transportation, you were either engaged in conversation with the person sitting next to you, or quietly reading your newspaper. But now, it seems everyone has been stuck next to someone who can't stop talking, has to say everything about everything. Some people have ventured to say it isn't so much the annoyance of someone talking, but the fact that they can only hear part of the conversation. But that's eavesdropping, and again, you can't really help but hear what's going on, but perhaps one shouldn't be listening in. In other places, they have found ways by jamming, which can be a problem if you're a doctor on call. Some countries will put up signs in the cafes, please turn your phones off. Movie theatres try it, but there's always someone who has to get that ever important call in the middle of the movie, and instead of just saying, thanks for calling, I'll call you back in an hour, no, they have to continue the conversation. These are extreme examples, but like all things annoying, they always stand out. So for the feedback section, I'm asking for some feedback on, do you think it's okay to have private conversations in public? How would you feel if video surveillance cameras in stores also came with a microphone and they were to post segments of your conversations on the internet? And again, does it matter anymore? Does it annoy you? Doesn't it annoy you? So let's get a little discussion going on the subject. And next time I'll be back with more memories of the past.